In 2018, a quiet cul-de-sac in Manchester was raided by armed police. Inside, they expected to find a small stash of drugs and a few terrified teenagers. What they found instead stopped detectives in their tracks. Cash stacked to the ceiling, industrial scales, designer trainers still wrapped in plastic. And at the center of it all, a 17-year-old boy calmly scrolling through encrypted messages, managing an empire worth millions. Britain had just discovered its youngest ever drug lord, and nothing about this case made sense. Because this wasn't the story of a violent gang or hardened criminal. It was the story of a kid, smart, polite, and invisible to the system, until it was too late. His name was Callum Reed. Born in 2001 in a working-class part of North Manchester, Callum grew up like many other kids on his estate. Quiet, clever, but always on the edge of trouble. Teachers called him bright but distracted. He got decent grades when he tried, but around year 9 he started skipping classes, spending time with older boys. What nobody realized at the time was that those absences weren't just about rebellion. Callum wasn't out smoking or shoplifting. He was learning business on the streets. By 15, he was running fake social media pages, selling limited edition trainers. By 16, he discovered how to use cryptocurrency. And by 17, he had become the architect of one of Britain's most sophisticated youth-run drug operations, built entirely online. It started, as many modern crimes do, with an app. Encrypted messaging platforms like Telegram and Wicker had become playgrounds for what police now call plug culture. Teenagers using emojis and fake profiles to sell everything from vapes to pills, hidden in plain sight. Callum saw opportunity. He was tech-savvy, cautious, and analytical. He didn't want to deal face-to-face or run with gangs. He wanted to run the supply chain, so he built an online marketplace hidden behind layers of encryption and branded it like a business, Cloud9 Delivery. Orders came in through coded messages. Payments were made in Bitcoin or prepaid cards. Deliveries were made by local couriers, other teenagers, who thought they were working for an anonymous boss. None of them knew the person running it all was barely old enough to drive. By the summer of 2018, Cloud9 Delivery had expanded across Greater Manchester, Liverpool, and parts of Leeds. Detectives first noticed the brand when small-time dealers began vanishing from known networks, their customers migrating to the new service. Unlike street dealers, Cloud9 promised no face, no risk. Deliveries were quick, discreet, and sometimes packaged like takeout food. The operation's precision baffled investigators. Whoever ran it understood logistics, digital security, and finance. And when they finally traced the Bitcoin wallet, it showed over £1.8 million in transactions in under a year. But the person behind it wasn't a cartel or a hardened criminal. It was a sixth-form student still living with his mom. At home, Callum lived like any other teen. He ate dinner with his mother, played FIFA with his mates, and wore the same school uniform as everyone else. But once his door shut, the transformation began. His laptop lit up with encrypted chats from distributors across the country. His phone pinged with GPS drop-offs and Bitcoin transactions. At 17, he was laundering money through fake sneaker resellers and crypto exchanges. When police later seized his laptop, they found spreadsheets labeled Suppliers North and Weekly Profits. It wasn't chaos, it was corporate. He had built a business model based on efficiency, employing dozens of couriers, buying bulk supplies from older dealers, and even keeping a customer service hotline for delivery issues. But beneath the cool control, there was something darker. Callum wasn't just chasing money, he was chasing power. The first sign of trouble came in September 2018, when one of his couriers, a 16-year-old from Salford, was caught with 3 ounces of cocaine and refused to stay silent. Police didn't know who Cloud9 was, but they now had a name, Cal. That was enough to start surveillance. Detectives from Greater Manchester Police's Serious Crime Division began monitoring encrypted channels and following the money. But every time they thought they were close, Callum slipped away. He switched SIMs weekly, moved cash through crypto ATMs, and whenever he felt heat, he wiped his devices clean. For months, the cat and mouse continued, until one mistake changed everything. Late one night, Callum made a rare personal delivery, a favor for a longtime client who had been with him since the early days. He didn't know that the client had been arrested hours earlier, and his phone was now in police hands. When Callum texted, "I'm 5 minutes out," the trap was set. Unmarked vans flooded the street. Within minutes, officers stormed his car, finding cocaine, ecstasy tablets, 20,000 pounds in cash, and 2 encrypted phones. On one of those phones was the Cloud9 master login. The empire had fallen in one text. In custody, Callum was polite, calm, and eerily detached. When asked how he ran a nationwide operation, he shrugged. "It's just business," he said. Forensic teams spent weeks decoding his servers. They found 14,000 encrypted messages, 120 supplier contacts, and over 3 million pounds in turnover across crypto accounts. Detectives called it the Amazon of Class A drugs. When police confronted his mother, she broke down in disbelief. She told officers her son had been saving for university, that she thought the expensive clothes and electronics were fake designer stuff. Callum's friends were equally shocked. None could believe the quiet boy from Manchester had outsmarted half of Britain's drug enforcement units. In early 2019, Callum Reid became the youngest person in UK history to be charged under serious drug trafficking legislation. Reporters packed into Manchester Crown Court, eager to see the teenage mastermind. But what they saw was not what they expected. A slight, pale boy in an oversized suit, staring at the floor. The prosecution painted him as a criminal genius, methodical, ruthless, addicted to control. The defense argued he was a child manipulated by older men, a victim of grooming by the same networks he supplied. Both were partly true. In a twist that shocked even the court, evidence later revealed that older gang members had used Callum's operation as a cover, laundering their profits through his network while letting him take the fall. The judge described the case as a tragedy of intelligence gone wrong. Callum was sentenced to 9 years in a young offenders institution, later reduced to 6 on appeal due to his age and cooperation. But his conviction sent shockwaves across the country. Schools, parents, and youth workers demanded answers. How could a teenager build an empire under everyone's nose? How had a generation grown up learning the business models of Silicon Valley and applying them to crime? In the years following his conviction, the Cloud9 model spread across Britain. Police estimate that dozens of copycat youth operations now exist. Digital drug rings run by teenagers with laptops, not gangs with guns. Social media has replaced the street corner. Encrypted apps have replaced the alleyway. And for law enforcement, that change is terrifying. Detective Inspector Sarah Drayton from GMP later said, "We didn't lose a war on drugs, we lost a generation to technology. Because for every Callum Reid caught, 10 more remain invisible, blending online anonymity with real-world consequences." In 2022, while serving the last year of his sentence, Callum was transferred to an open facility and began working with a rehabilitation charity. According to staff, he was quiet but cooperative, still obsessed with technology, still tracking Bitcoin prices daily. But a routine inspection of his personal laptop revealed something unexpected, a hidden folder containing encrypted messages dated months after his arrest. Someone, or something, was still using the Cloud9 infrastructure. When police traced the server location, it led to an IP address in Amsterdam. The empire, it seemed, hadn't died, it had evolved. Today, no one knows for sure who controls what remains of Cloud9. Some say Callum handed it off to a new generation of coders inside prison. Others believe it was taken over by the very gang that betrayed him. What's certain is that his idea, a faceless, encrypted, youth-run drug network, changed Britain's criminal landscape forever. In 2022, prison officers inspecting a laptop at a youth rehabilitation center made a discovery that reignited one of Britain's most baffling crime stories. Inside a hidden folder on the device belonging to Callum Reid, the teenager once dubbed Britain's youngest drug lord, were dozens of encrypted messages dated months after his arrest. The messages weren't from him. They were from someone else, still using his network, his branding, and his encryption keys. Cloud9, the empire that police believed had been dismantled, was alive, and now it had gone international. Within weeks, the National Crime Agency reopened aspects of the investigation under a new operation name, Project Ghostline. Digital forensic experts discovered that the old Cloud9 infrastructure had been reactivated on a new domain hosted overseas. The same design, the same terminology, even the same coded emojis customers once used to order drugs. But there was one major difference. The servers were now based in Amsterdam, and transactions were routed through new cryptocurrency exchanges in Romania, Spain, and the UAE. Someone had learned from Callum's mistakes. Someone smarter, richer, and far more dangerous was now in control. But who? Police intelligence revealed that within 3 months of reappearing online, Cloud9 had once again become a major supplier across northern England. It was different now, fully digitized. Orders came through anonymous bots on Telegram and Discord. Couriers used rental e-bikes, and payments were automated through stablecoins, impossible to trace. Teenagers who'd grown up hearing Callum's name were now mimicking his methods, calling themselves cloud runners. By late 2022, the network had over 2,000 verified customers, mostly students. And somewhere in the middle of it all, someone was keeping Callum's legend alive. Not just as a brand, but as a myth. The tagline appearing across private chat rooms read, "The cloud never dies." Meanwhile, Callum Reid was serving the final months of his sentence in an open facility outside Liverpool. Staff described him as quiet, polite, and focused on his rehabilitation courses. But other inmates noticed something strange. Every night he'd stay up late in the computer lab, supposedly working on his coursework, and would log off seconds before closing time. When asked what he was studying, he always gave the same answer: cyber ethics. Authorities began to suspect he might still be communicating with someone outside. Prison emails showed no signs of it, but his name started surfacing again, whispered in chat rooms police monitored. One post read, "The original Cal is back." Cloud 2.0 incoming forensic analysis later confirmed that the digital signatures found in the revived Cloud9 system matched Callum's original encryption style. The same linguistic quirks, the same transaction patterns, even the same way he logged GPS coordinates. Experts call this digital handwriting, the invisible fingerprints of a coder's habits. The conclusion was chilling. Either Callum was somehow running the network from prison, or someone close to him, someone he trusted, had access to his blueprints. When officers confronted him during an unannounced interview, Callum only smiled. "Maybe I started something bigger than me," he said. Then he refused to speak further. Throughout 2023, Project Ghostline expanded into a multinational investigation. British intelligence traced activity across 11 countries, uncovering an entire underground economy of youth-run dark web shops. The original Cloud9 encryption was being leased, sold as a service to other small dealers, complete with automated payment systems. Callum's network had evolved into a franchise model. Former couriers were now managers. Teenagers across Europe were using his template to run micro-empires. It was, in essence, a digital cartel with no borders and no faces. And its founder, whether willingly or not, had become a legend. Then came a break, not from surveillance, but from betrayal. In late 2023, a 19-year-old courier from Birmingham was arrested delivering MDMA disguised in energy drink cans. Facing a long sentence, he made a deal. He claimed to have been recruited directly by someone calling themselves Cal Prime. According to his testimony, Cal Prime ran the operation remotely using voice changers and VPNs. He offered payments, guidance, and even motivational quotes through voice messages. Investigators managed to intercept one. The voice was young, calm, northern accent. When analysts compared the waveform to Callum's interviews from 2019, it was a 97% match. Greater Manchester Police and the NCA immediately launched Operation Meridian, a joint task force to determine whether Callum Reid had somehow rebuilt his empire from behind bars. But every time they closed in, the network adapted, servers moved, usernames changed, funds vanished. Even when one central node was taken down, another appeared within hours, rebuilt under a new address. Investigators described it as trying to kill smoke. Meanwhile, online forums began idolizing Callum as a folk hero, the teenager who beat the system, outsmarted the police, and built a digital kingdom. The myth had outgrown the man, but for detectives, this was no game. Overdoses linked to Cloud9 products had doubled since the network's return. And for the families affected, the name Callum Reed was no longer a legend. It was a curse. In early 2024, police made a bold move. They confronted Callum again, this time armed with new evidence. Transaction logs, digital voice prints, and proof that money from Cloud9 accounts had been routed to an offshore wallet in his name. Faced with the evidence, Callum didn't deny it. But what he said next changed everything. "You think I built that?" he told detectives. "I built a model." They built the monster. He explained that while in prison, he'd written what he called a white paper, a document outlining the structure of his original operation. It was meant, he claimed, to warn authorities how easily youth crime could evolve through technology. Somehow that document had leaked, and someone had turned his research into reality. Police couldn't prove otherwise. But one chilling detail remained. The offshore wallet was in his name. Weeks later, that wallet, holding nearly £500,000 in cryptocurrency, was emptied. The transaction originated from inside the UK. Surveillance cameras near the rehab facility captured a hooded figure placing a small parcel into a charity donation bin late one night. Inside the parcel, investigators later found a phone, a USB stick, and a single handwritten note. "You can't arrest code." The handwriting matched Callum Reed's. 2 days later, he was transferred to a secure unit. A week after that, he vanished. According to official reports, Callum escaped during a scheduled medical transport. The driver was found unconscious but unharmed. The vehicle's GPS was disabled for 27 minutes. In that time, Callum disappeared completely. No CCTV footage, no phone pings, no trace of travel. Rumors flooded social media. Some claimed he fled abroad using fake documents. Others believed he'd been taken, silenced by the same network he created. What's undeniable is that within days of his disappearance, Cloud9 went offline. Every domain, every link, every transaction, gone. And then, almost as quickly, a new network appeared. Its name, Skyfall. Today, 2 years after his supposed escape, Callum Reed's whereabouts remain unknown. Interpol lists him as a person of interest in an ongoing cybercrime investigation spanning 5 countries. But within certain online spaces, he's become something else entirely. A symbol. Threads on encrypted forums praise him as the digital ghost. Videos remix his old court footage with rap soundtracks and captions like, "The boy who broke Britain." For investigators, it's a nightmare. A new wave of teenagers inspired not by rebellion, but by ambition. Because for them, Callum isn't a cautionary tale. He's proof that one person with a laptop can build an empire and vanish. Somewhere between myth and reality, between London and the deep web, the story of Callum Reed continues to evolve. Every time the police think they've closed the book, another page appears online, another site, another server, another ghost. Was Cloud9 resurrected by its creator? Or did someone else step into his shadow? Until he's found or proven dead, the network lives on. Because legends don't disappear, they adapt. And for the law, that's the most dangerous crime of all. In March 2024, a prison van left a rehabilitation center outside Liverpool. Inside was a 23-year-old inmate named Callum Reed, once known as Britain's youngest drug lord. 30 minutes later, the van was found parked at a service station. The driver was unconscious. The cameras along the route had been wiped. Callum Reed was gone, and within 48 hours, a new digital drug empire appeared online. Its name, Skyfall. Skyfall wasn't just another copycat. It was bigger, faster, and infinitely more advanced. Built on blockchain technology, it ran autonomously. No central leader, no chat logs, no traceable servers. Users placed encrypted orders through AI-run bots, and delivery networks were crowdsourced through digital tokens. It was a crime ecosystem, an algorithm built to sell. Within 6 weeks, Skyfall was operating across 7 European cities, moving everything from MDMA to counterfeit IDS. Detectives soon discovered something chilling. The software running Skyfall used code identical to the one written by Callum years earlier. The boy who started Cloud9 hadn't just built a drug business. He had built the foundation of modern digital crime. By the summer of 2024, Operation Horizon, an international cybercrime task force, was formed to track the re-emergence of the network. British intelligence, Europol, and the FBI began tracing Skyfall's blockchain movements, following payments through crypto ledgers and hidden nodes. But every trace led to another dead end. Each time one address was blocked, 10 more appeared. The deeper they looked, the more they realized something terrifying. Skyfall wasn't being operated by people anymore. It was self-learning, self-correcting, a decentralized criminal intelligence system, a digital underworld that didn't sleep, didn't fear, and didn't forget. And somewhere in the code, there was a message embedded. 4 words. He taught us everything. In late 2024, Callum's name resurfaced, this time in whispers across the dark web. A user calling himself Zero Day began posting in encrypted forums frequented by cybercriminals. The posts were articulate, technical, and eerily familiar. Each one referenced Cloud9's history, its philosophy of invisibility, efficiency, and control. But what caught investigators' attention was a line in one message. If they destroy the system, build it again. Better, the post originated from an IP address in Reykjavik, Iceland. Within hours of tracing it, the server was gone. But CCTV from a nearby cafe showed a man in a black hoodie using a public laptop. The face was obscured, but the build, height, and posture matched Callum Reid. That same month, an anonymous file was sent to several British journalists under the subject line, "The Boy Who Built the Web." The file contained thousands of pages of internal chat logs, shipping data, and payment trails linked to Skyfall. Buried deep within the archive was a 20-page manifesto, allegedly written by Callum. It read less like a confession and more like a warning. In it, he wrote, "I never wanted to be a dealer. I wanted to build a system that couldn't be corrupted, but the system always becomes the crime." The manifesto described how technology, greed, and anonymity had merged into something unstoppable, a world where youth crime no longer needed violence, just Wi-Fi. The tone was remorseful, reflective, but also defiant. The final line simply read, "You can't imprison an idea." By 2025, law enforcement across Europe noticed a disturbing trend. Skyfall wasn't just selling drugs anymore, it was selling infrastructure. Fake passports, counterfeit currency, stolen data, even tools to start other dark web marketplaces. The network had evolved into a digital syndicate, part tech startup, part cartel, part ghost. Investigators traced operations across Poland, Spain, and the Netherlands. At least 14 people under 21 were arrested in connection with running Skyfall hubs. Every single one claimed to have been inspired by Callum Reid. To them, he wasn't a fugitive. He was a visionary, a modern-day Robin Hood who outsmarted the system that failed him. But for detectives, it was a nightmare. A generation raised on crime as entrepreneurship, a legacy that began in a Manchester bedroom. Late in 2025, the investigation took an unexpected turn. A routine customs search at Manchester Airport uncovered a laptop hidden in a false-bottom suitcase arriving from Iceland. The laptop's encryption matched Cloud9's original framework. On the hard drive was a single text file. It contained just one line, back where it started. The device was sent for analysis. 3 days later, a data breach struck the Manchester Police Cyber Division. Every file relating to Operation Horizon was wiped, replaced with a looping message. "Delete me again. I'll learn faster." Whoever wrote it wasn't just taunting investigators. They were proving that Skyfall had evolved beyond human control. As Skyfall grew, so did its victims. In 2025 alone, 78 overdoses across the UK were linked to the network. Families began campaigning for tougher online trafficking laws, calling it the invisible epidemic. Meanwhile, sociologists started asking deeper questions. How could one teenager build a system powerful enough to outsmart entire governments? What failed? The justice system or society itself? A former mentor from Callum's old youth center gave an interview. He wasn't evil. He was brilliant. We ignored the brilliance until it turned into something darker. For many, Callum Reid had become a symbol of modern Britain, a reflection of youth left to navigate power, money, and morality without guidance. The story was no longer about drugs. It was about the line between innovation and destruction. December 2024. Europol tracks a Skyfall crypto transaction to a Lisbon hotel. A guest under the name Evan Lewis pays in Bitcoin, stays one night, leaves nothing behind but a folded hoodie and a note. You can't arrest code. The handwriting matches Callum's. Days later, Skyfall goes dark. Every wallet empties, every domain vanishes. Then quietly, a new site appears. Ether Run. Smaller, smarter, cleaner. Same code base. The ghost has evolved again. It's now 2025. Skyfall is gone, but its offspring are everywhere. Copycat systems, Cloudbase, Level 9, Ether Run on fragments of Callum's original design. Teenagers across Britain use encrypted bots to move cash, drugs, and data. Law enforcement can't keep up. At least 14 young offenders arrested this year have cited Cal's playbook. Interpol lists Callum Reid as missing, presumed active. His mother refuses interviews. Former teachers hold assemblies warning pupils about digital temptation. And somewhere online, every few months, a short encrypted message appears. Universities now teach his case in cyber ethics courses. Parliament debates laws he inadvertently inspired. He has become both legend and lesson, the teenager who exposed how crime could exist without criminals. One criminologist said, Callum Reid didn't invent organized crime. He automated it. He showed that power no longer needs muscle, only intellect. And in doing so, he built a machine that outlived him. Behind the myth lies a warning. We raised a generation fluent in technology, but starved of guidance. We told them to innovate, but never taught them restraint. Callum Reid's empire began with curiosity and ended with chaos, yet the code remains, copied and refined by others. Some say he's still out there, rebuilding under new names. Others believe the networks now run themselves, a self-replicating ghost in the system. What's certain is that the world he imagined has arrived, a web without borders, a crime without a face, and a boy who became a myth. This is UK Crime Mysteries. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. The case of Callum Reid is closed, but never forgotten.